Today we got a special interview with Teapot, Lara, and Snab with two of the Arenanet developers about Janther Wilds, TMC, and also Brian, who actually did Dragonstorm and Gang War meta event, which is actually very interesting. He does the bosses. I didn't even know that. So it's very cool. And they talked about Convergances, about raids, about PvP, the PvP new game mode, and of course about the new weapons. So go definitely check the entire podcast, the entire interview in the link in the description in Teapot's channel. But I'm going to do a little summarizing here if you guys want to see that. And of course my beautiful opinions. So subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Go to my Twitch to watch me live. Go to my Ko-Fi if you want to support me. And let's get into it. The first thing they talk about is indeed the weapons. They say how they actually try and develop them and how the next ones are gonna go. It's actually a very small segment of the conversation, but it's actually very interesting how they talk about the fact that they always want to make every weapon in some way, shape or form available for everyone in every game mode, right? They really want, if they make a weapon, for you to be able to play it on PP, in War vs. World, in raids, in strikes, in fractals, everywhere. But that not always happens, right? Sometimes, a lot of the times, they will end up being better for one game mode or another, and they also usually start with the weapon trying to make it work in one of the specific spots, and then go through the other ones and see how they would work in the other scenarios, right? They also talk about that this actually, sometimes doesn't work very well, but they really try to hard to make it as good as possible, as balanced as possible, and they also try to not make it so they replace previous playstyles of the class. For example, let's say that staff in Warrior, they tried the best for them to not replace another weapon with that as well, right? And they apply this to everything. Now, this not always works, but they try their best. They also talk about the mini games because, hey, the new weapons, they kind of do actually have the little mini games inside of them. Some of them small little shards, so you have to, spend. Some of them you have to be in specific spots to make the attacks trigger in different ways. There's a lot of little mini games that they appear. And they talked about how they really liked other weapons that work like this. For example, in the first place, something like Hammer on Warrior, how you have your 2 that refreshes when you press 5, and then had this idea about making not only this happen in most of the weapons, most of the times, especially in new spears, you actually have the 2 being the most important attack that you use, and then your 5 being the one that resets the 2. And honestly, having the same buttons every time across other classes, I think it's a good thing, so people get their idea of this rotation, this sort of gameplay in their brains, right? But also all of them work in a different type of way. But coming from this little idea that they had, and they thought it was very, very fun in something like Warrior, made them do all the other weapons like that. I'm sure that next time they're gonna find something else to go for. Something else that works in a way that they enjoy and we enjoy to make the rest of the weapons, right? Then they talk about Convergances. Now, they talk about how Convergances and raids are going to be tied together. Raids and Convergances are going to be in the same spot narratively. For example, let's say that, the new raid was supposed to be in, I don't know. Let's say it was supposed to be right here in the Sunlight Jade Junkyard, just like the strike from Anka is. It's going to work like that, the whole place is gonna be the raid, but it also will be the new Convergence, right? It's just gonna be in a different type. It's just gonna have different types of mechanics, but the narrative, the story, everything is gonna work in the same way, which is actually pretty good. It's a pretty nice thing because they talk about how they want the story to be tied to the main story, not completely different, but still not necessary, kind of optional as well. But this makes so everyone can actually enjoy this new story. How deep it is and how interesting it is without having to commit to something very hard like a raid, right? Which I think is definitely a great idea. This is one of the biggest issues that something like Bastion of the Penitent had, that the story there was absolutely great, but because it was very hard to do, a lot of people don't even know that it exists. So this way you can actually make it so not only is a cool story that they can develop and it's not going to be wasted, but also a lot of people can actually go and have fun in any type of scenario, any type of difficulty they enjoy, right? They also talk about that, the fact that each of the difficulties will be very different for everyone, right? You're going to have the hard mode on the CM on the raid side, you're gonna have the normal mode on the raid side, and you're gonna also have the legendary mode on the raid side. as well as having a convergence that will have a normal mode and a CM as well. And they make it very clear that the mechanics of raids and convergences are going to be very different, even though they're going to be the same bosses or whatever, because, of course, raid mechanics require way more coordination. You're probably, and this, you could see this in something like the greens that happen a lot in Soto, right? In the open world, greens are so much harder to actually deal with because there's so many people. Imagine if there's like a mechanic that you can only get 3 people in the green, otherwise it fails. It's going to be impossible to deal with in something like in the open world because there's so many people and people are just chilling, right? Same thing goes for something like Giant Elves. You know, the first boss there, they have a little soak mechanic, like a little drop mechanic that if you get targeted by the boss, it'll drop a little pool on your feet, right? And because there's so much happening and so many circles on the floor, everybody drops in the middle of the group because nobody knows that's what's happening. That works in something like a raid because it's only 10 people and you can see where everyone is and you can be like, oh, this person fucked up the mechanic. It's easy. But in a meta, not so much. So this is going to be, they're probably going to be in some way inspired by the raid mechanics, but they're going to be different in the way that they get executed. They also talk a lot and give a lot of praise to Sarah CM. They're very happy with it, which makes me super happy because, well, I'm almost killing it. I'm killing it this week, probably. And, well, legendary mode it is, where you kill CM. But it makes me happy because I think we're going to get more like stuff like this. They were super happy with the way that the World's the First race was developed, how everyone was very hyped about it. Even the people that were never going to actually go for this boss were, they were very happy that everyone was watching it and they were themselves watching it, even though they probably wouldn't try and do something so hard. So I think it's absolutely great that they're going for this and that they're seeing some sort of, what's the word? Return on investment for such a hard fight, but they definitely talk about the fact that they are gonna be careful to not overdo it, right? They don't want to make the every fight like this, because obviously you don't want to tire the community one, and you don't want to overwork your workers. They definitely talked about the fact that if they did this for every fight, they would have a very it would be very hard to sustain in terms of development. So I'm sure that they were gonna have at least one fight that is kind of Sarah's CM level, Sarah's legendary mode level, but we'll definitely have to see. Now it is very nice that they talk about it positively though. They're not saying, oh, nobody knew about it, nobody cared, and it wasn't a good investment. They said that it was, and I think that's the most important part if you're actually a fan of this type of content. They also talked about the new PvP game mode, which is honestly the biggest and most important thing in this podcast, in this interview, I think, because they talk a lot about it. The main thing that they talk about is the fact that this new PvP game mode is supposed to be something that is a stepping stone to what Ranked and Conquest is. And they talk about how they kind of tried to do this with Stronghold, but it didn't really work out because, well, when they did Stronghold, it was just something that was made internally, and they just blasted in there, and they're like, well, let's see if it works. And, well, it didn't, and they never developed it any further. And they don't want to do that with this. They want everyone in the community to be part of the process of the actual game mode, and of course of the actual map. And they talked a lot about the fact that they want the map that we have for this specific new game mode is very much in beta, right? It's not all the textures are ready, everything, like most of the things are reused assets, but they want to know that the mechanics and the game mode itself is fun before actually start, putting not effort into it, but like before they commit insanely into it. They want to see how we react, if we find it funny, if we find it interesting, if it works, right? And then they're gonna start, completely putting everything in the maps and new assets and new things. I think they also said that there's gonna be a zap cloud inside of the of the map, which is very interesting. Now, the way that they want to do it is they want this game mode to not actually have ranked and replace Conquest at all. They want to be, as we said before, a stepping stone, because Conquest is too difficult. It's too, what is the word? Too complex. There's so many years of people that have played this game mode over and over and over and over again. And at some point, you have to think, well, how can you ever get into something like this? Like, how could you? There's no way. With people that have plus 10 years experience of playing this every day and being the best at what they are, at PvP, could you actually ever catch up to them? I don't think it's impossible, but that doesn't mean it is actually something that most people are going to be able to do, which leads to PvP not being as fun as it could. Because like even though I'm having a lot of fun, it is pretty frustrating to sometimes fight people who are very much experienced than me, much more experienced than me. There we go. Holy shit. It is frustrating. You know, you're not gonna have fun. You're just gonna feed. You're just gonna die, and you're gonna be like, damn, I wish I wasn't doing something else now. And giving us a game mode that is, you know, in some ways makes the starting point a bit more equal is definitely something that is gonna be pretty good. Now, the problem is, I think, that you're never gonna be able to do this in a game like this because the gameplay is very, very tied to what Conquest is. So those people that play in Conquest are gonna be very good in the new game mode regardless, unless they literally make the combat completely different in that game mode, something like Plunderstorm from WoW, where every one of your abilities gets replaced. But I really doubt they're gonna do that. They talked a little bit about what they want this game mode to be, and they said like there's gonna be bases and what they really wanted, and they couldn't really talk a lot about it. But I'm gonna give you guys what I'm thinking, right? But they said that they wanted, because in Conquest it's kind of hard to tell what you should be doing, right? Yeah, you have to actually conquest the points, you know, capture them and then stay in them so you can get as many points as possible. There are rotations. There are, hey, should we have 2 people in this node or 1? Should we move around? Should we not? Should we just stay here? Like, all these things are very important questions that you learn by playing the game over and over and over again. So how can you know without experience? And the thing is, they wanted this to not be the case in this new game mode. They want it to be very intuitive. And sure, there's going to be some sort of complexity, but they want you to, and I think this is what the this is the example they gave. You don't want someone, they want people to just go into the game mode and know what to do, and even if they don't exactly know the perfect thing to do to win, they're going to be working for their team and just by existing, right? Just by fighting someone, regardless of where they are. And what this means to me, at least, it means that it's going to be very intuitive. There's not going to be 3 points to like capture. There's not going to be anything like this. It's just going to be, hey, go to this spot where everyone is and fight other people and win. If you win, you get more points. If you lose, you don't get that many points. And sure, there's probably going to be some other stuff that you can consider, like maybe like, you know, how in League or Dota you buy certain items with certain with certain currency that you get from playing the game, and this will make you more powerful, so it makes it more fun. But it could be anything like this, right? Who knows? But it is. I think it's gonna be something like this. I think it's gonna be definitely more straightforward. One, I think it's gonna have more emphasis on, you know, mechanics from the game mode rather than actual skill as well. And I think it's gonna be probably something that they're gonna try as much as possible to remove skill that you actually get from playing other PvP game modes in Guild Wars 2, and instead learning this new game mode, right? And of course, this will still give you some sort of like advantage to play in the next game mode. They want it to be a stepping stone, not something completely different. But I think this is probably a good way of doing it. Now, the question is, and they did talk about the fact that this will not have ranked, which makes sense. You don't want ranked to be deleted because this new game mode exists. But what scares me about that is that how can you make people play this if it doesn't have a rank system? And I think the only way they can actually go for it is giving it, I guess, maybe like mini seasons of some sort where you get different rewards, different skins. Maybe the Astro Ward, the Wizard's Vault can help with this. Maybe there's like special events that you can actually go for. Hey, if you play this amount of, you know, the new game mode, this amount of games in the new game mode, you'll get a special one that gives you a lot of Astral Acclaim. Something like this could work, but it's they're gonna have to think about that. I think Plunderstorm did a very good job at essentially giving you a lot of skins for exactly that game mode as well. The more you played, I think that would be very good. But they're gonna have to think about it so it doesn't instantly die because nobody cares about it. Because fun is nice, but this is an MMO, and MMO players want rewards. If you don't give them rewards, if you don't give them a reason to actually play the game, they won't. And that is something that they need to consider. Now, I guess that's about it. That's all the information we've gotten They also, yeah, they did say that they were very, they didn't want to abandon ranked at all. They wanted ranked to be the biggest and most important part of PvP conquest. And they didn't want to replace old players with new players. They wanted to have both. They wanted to get new players that eventually become old players by playing the game and not, alienate any of them. We'll definitely have to see how it works out. And I'm very interested. You guys can tell me what do you guys think about this? What about this entire PvP, the convergences, if you think it's a good idea, about the spears, everything. And you can definitely go and check the entire interview if you want to see more. As I did skip a few things that I don't think are that important, but there's always little things that you might actually have catch that I didn't. So definitely go and check that out as well. And thank you very much for watching. Thank you, of course, Lara, Teapot, and Snap for making this interview. And definitely go. I'll link their channels in the description so you guys can go follow them in every social media. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for watching, guys. See you guys around. Love you all. Bye bye. Bye bye.